A brand new balance patch has just suddenly been released today along with some additional content for Overwatch 2. I for one am super excited to not only play the new game mode that we're going to get to in just a second, but also see how these changes end up warping the meta and sort of get a better idea about what Blizzard wants Season 2 to look like. Wait, have you hit GM yet? Well, what are you waiting for? GameLeap.com has some of the top coaches in the game making all kinds of guides for you to gain SR and realize your potential. If you want to climb quick with courses unlike anything you'll find on YouTube, then follow the link in the description below or go to GameLeap.com to get your sub today. So before we get into the hero balance, we have the new game mode Battle for Olympus, which is a free-for-all deathmatch variant. You play as one of the 7 powerful gods, all sort of pertaining to the new, Greek mythology skins that they've been releasing for this season. And you end up getting what are called divine powers that kick in when you use your ultimate. Now, there was a video that was released not too long ago that sort of showcased some of these divine powers without getting too descriptive into what they actually do. But either way, this does look like a very flavorful and interesting variation on free-for-all deathmatch, and they also added some other interesting rewards for it. It says the most valiant contenders in the Battle for Olympus will have the chance to earn limited time voice lines and player titles to brag about their accomplishments for all eternity. At the end of the event, the hero whose powers were used to secure the most eliminations across all matches will be crowned the new ruler of Olympus. Now, I'm not sure if that means that just one person will get that title, but if it is, then that sounds pretty damn cool. Okay, so now let's move right into the balance changes, the real juice that people are looking for. Okay, so to get things kicked off, one unfortunate thing is that there are no hog changes in this patch. My assumption is that the next patch is the one in which we will be receiving those much talked about hog nerfs. They did say mid-January, and this is more early January, so I'm just having a little bit of faith on that one. But for now, we do have the spicy Junker Queen buffs that they had mentioned, starting with her passive Adrenaline Rush. It says now heals for the remaining wound damage when an enemy dies with wounds on them. It very much seems that they have been, based off of the changes that we're about to get into and the previous changes, they're trying to make Junker Queen more of a self-heal oriented tank, sort of like giving her a lot of her sustain from her self-heals using her wounds and her passive ability. It's an interesting way to go, I think, for sure, but I'm not entirely positive on just how viable she's going to be long-term with that sort of a philosophy. But moving on, they also gave her Carnage, which is her sort of axe swing, a reduction in cooldown for each enemy it impacts. So every enemy you hit is now going to reduce the cooldown on your Carnage by 2 entire seconds. This isn't a groundbreaking change by any means, but it's definitely a good one, seeing as most of the time, unless you completely whiff, you're going to hit at least one person with your Carnage. This is essentially the same as just a flat 2-second cooldown reduction. They've also changed her dagger a little bit, and honestly, this is the only one where I'm just kind of confused, I suppose. The thrown impact damage of the dagger has been reduced from 80 to 50, which I think is a pretty bad change for her. And to compensate for that reduction in direct damage by 30, they have actually added a 30 damage wound when you stick a target with it, which stacks with wounds caused by your quick melee or your returning jagged blade hits, and I also assume your ultimate. So really, I don't think this is going to change much about her. It's nice to see her getting some buffs finally, because I think Junker Queen is a very fun tank who is in some serious need of love. Like I said, they're really trying to go for the whole self-sustain from your passive as a sort of core focus, a core foundation of the character's kit. But I think that doing things like reducing the Jagged Blade impact damage in favor of adding a new wound that's going to heal you for, 50 health, I really don't think that that's the way to do it. I think that they could have just added the 30 damage wound without taking the impact damage away, or at least sort of reducing the amount of wound damage it deals. Because admittedly, now that I'm saying it out loud, 110 damage would be a lot, even with a damage over time element. But what I'm getting at is that they don't need to reduce her burst damage when there are so many heroes that can just one-shot in the game. It is my personal preference that we get rid of these one-shots, or at least significantly reduce the amount of one-shots we're seeing in the current meta. But if you're making changes like this without changing those other heroes, then you're not really going to have a super effective tank. Okay, our next change comes to Zarya, who is actually seeing a little bit of a buff, which is very nice. On her passive, they have reduced the degeneration rate for her energy from 2.2 to 2 per second, meaning that every bit of energy that you get is going to stick around for longer. They have also increased the delay that happens between when you gain energy and when it actually starts to decay or degenerate off of you. Previously, it only took 1 second for that to begin, and now they have bumped it up to 2 seconds, which is going to be just another additional nice change of sort of a quality change for Zarya. Having a higher average energy throughout a match is going to increase your overall DPS pretty significantly, and these are some very solid changes to sort of boost that without making her feel oppressive like she was in early season 1. And now we have Brigida, who got by far the most random change in my opinion. They have increased the health on her barrier shield from 250 to 300. Brig is the worst support character in the game right now. I'm not really sure it stems from her not having enough barrier health. I think it just has to do with her lack of utility, lack of mobility, and overall lack of damage. So she just has nothing. She doesn't even have that old strong ultimate anymore because they've changed it from armor to overhealth, which just, it's really not that good. She's really not good right now. She needs some way more significant changes than this. I mean, even just giving her a movement speed boost might be interesting, but increasing her barrier health, I mean, what? And finally, we have a Mora change, which I honestly do think is pretty good. Dealing damage with Biotic Orb now restores a small amount of biotic energy. This is actually a good buff for Mora because now she doesn't need to get as close to get some energy back, which is very key in a one-shot meta like this. She doesn't have to put herself in direct danger to get just a tiny bit of energy back. So that's always a nice little change. She's not really that strong right now, so a little buff is like nice. But also, I think this actually adds a lot to the intuitiveness of the character. When I started playing Mora when she first came out forever ago, I thought that my Biotic Orb would restore my energy because I was like, oh, when I deal damage, I get energy back. So on top of it being a nice buff, it's also just a nice change for newer players in general that are going to pick up Mora. And, you know, I don't think anyone's really going to complain about this. It's non-intrusive to the enemy, and it's nice. So I really like this change. There's also a list of bug fixes that came through. Some of them are not so important in my opinion, like Reaper's animations when he's using his take a knee emote, but there are some really, really nice ones here that I'm going to go over just to sort of highlight the ones that are important. So for starters, they fixed some areas on Watchpoint Gibraltar that allowed players to escape the map boundaries, and this is a big deal in Overwatch because whenever you do get out of the map and you're able to look in, you can actually shoot enemies and they can't shoot you back. So it's definitely important for the Overwatch dev team to literally crush this bug anytime it appears on any map. Anytime someone can get out of the map on anywhere in Overwatch, it needs to be addressed immediately because there's no counterplay at all. There were also some really good changes on the Shambali Monastery where they fixed some areas that players could get stuck, which I've heard a lot of people have this issue. I haven't, but this has been something I've seen before. And there's also some areas that they fixed where your abilities could actually get sort of just eaten by the environment. And finally, they fixed another issue that was with Tracer where Pulse Bomb would not damage Tracer if it was stuck to an enemy. As far as I know, this was still a pretty inconsistent issue, but I'm glad they fixed it so that when I walk into an enemy Tracer or dash into them after getting stuck, they are going to die as well. I think that's a good change and it's important for the game. So anyway, that's all for today's patch notes. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe for more high quality educational news and guide content, and I will see you all again very soon. Take care and peace.